Is Kenny Pickett the next Big Ben? What history has Pickett made in his rookie season? What does Kenny's teammates think of their quarterback? Find out this and more coming up. Welcome to Football Craze. Stay to the end and find out how Pickett will take the Steelers to the playoffs in the near future. Is Kenny Pickett the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers? What makes Kenny so special? Ben Roethlisberger was a quarterback for the Steelers who embodied the attitude of the Steelers organization. Toughness and grit were the calling card for Big Ben. When Ben decided to retire, the Steelers had to find another franchise quarterback. They would not have to look very far. A highlight reel of a quarterback, Kenny Pickett, was a top 3 quarterback in the nation while attending University of Pittsburgh. Before Kenny even hit the NFL, he was popular with the national sports media. He was known as Two Gloves Pickett. Normally, quarterbacks don't wear gloves, or if they do, it would only be one glove on their non-throwing hand. The reason for this is because the ball could easily slip out of the quarterback's hands. An explanation for his look was that he felt like the gloves would give him some stronger grip on the football when throwing it. Leading into the NFL draft, there was another big story about Kenny. After the NFL Combine, Kenny's hands measured very small for a quarterback. If you have smaller hands as a quarterback, it may be more difficult to throw the ball with a tight spiral. Throwing the ball with a tight spiral, especially downfield, can affect your accuracy. Despite all these criticisms, the Pittsburgh Steelers chose Pickett with the 20th overall pick in the 2022 draft. What does Kenny and Big Ben have in common? In Kenny's short career, he has led the Steelers back to win many games under 2 minutes left in the game. In fact, Kenny is the only quarterback since the AFL and NFL merger in 1970 to throw a game-winning touchdown in the final 2 minutes in back-to-back games. Ben had a total of 53 game-winning touchdowns in the final 2 minutes, which is third all-time. Another key similarity to both Kenny and Ben are their measurables. Both are tall and very strong quarterbacks. Ben is 6 foot 5 inches tall and weighs 240 pounds. Kenny is 6 foot 3 inches and 220 pounds. The final similarity between the two quarterbacks is that they both can throw the football deep with a high amount of accuracy. Another similarity between the two quarterbacks is their toughness in the pocket. Ben was known as a very tough quarterback to take down, but when Ben had to step up in the pocket and take a hard hit, he just got back up. Kenny is very similar, even with a smaller build than Ben. Kenny has not been afraid to step up in the pocket and take a hit. In fact, Kenny was seen as taking a hit and smiling at the player who hit him when Kenny got up. This season in the NFL, there have been a lot of quarterback injuries. So if the Steelers have just invested in a quarterback that may be able to sustain a lot of punishment and not get injured, then Kenny has the best chance to lead the Steelers to victory. What does Kenny's teammates think of him and his leadership? What does Mike Tomlin think of his young quarterback? Be sure to stay to the end. You won't believe what Kenny's potential could be in the Pittsburgh system. Mike Tomlin has been the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers for over 13 years. Tomlin has seen many young quarterbacks that have not succeeded in his system, but Tomlin had glowing words to say about Kenny. "I can't say enough about our young quarterback," Tomlin said. When referencing Kenny's ability to come back and win a game, Tomlin said, "He smiled in the face of it. He's always ready to be that guy in the moment." Kenny has gotten the confidence of his head coach despite the organization bringing in their starting quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, whom Pickett replaced. Kenny waited for his moment and was not willing to give it back to Mitch. One of the leaders of the Steelers' defense is the younger brother of J.J. Watt, T.J. Watt. Watt also had some glowing words about Kenny's poise on the field. Watt said, "We see the moxie in our quarterback. Despite the Steelers being a young team trying to rebuild, the leaders in the Steelers' locker room have already shown massive support. One of the real signs that you are a leader of your offense is if you have the respect of your offensive linemen. Any quarterback is only as good as their offensive linemen." One of Kenny's offensive linemen, Dan Moore Jr., spoke after one of the games that Kenny led the Steelers back to win. "There was energy. It was almost like we had the confidence, like we knew we were going to go down there and score." During the Big Ben years, fans and teammates always knew that they had a chance in any game no matter how much time was left in the game. Kenny has revitalized that confidence in the Steelers fans and his teammates. It has also given the confidence to the organization that they found their next Big Ben. Now I suppose that instead of Big Ben, it will be Big Ken. Is Kenny Pickett able to play in unfavorable weather conditions? If you are going to play in the greater Northeast, then you better have thick skin, and I don't mean that figuratively. There are certain cities in the NFL that players have to get adjusted to playing in frigid temperatures. Pittsburgh is no exception. On the night that the Steelers were celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Immaculate Reception, Kenny would lead the Steelers back against the Raiders during a frigid cold night in Pittsburgh. At the end of the Sunday night game, Kenny was interviewed and given a game ball. Pickett, talking about the drive that won them the game, said, "I feel like everyone was locked in on what we had to do," Pickett said. "We didn't let the frigid weather affect us. We came together, executed at a high level for the final 2-minute drive, and got in the end zone and won the game, so that's all that matters." When Pickett was asked what he was going to do with the game ball, he said, "I'll probably send it to my parents." Not only did Pickett show leadership and poise to win that game, but he did it in an efficient way, throwing the ball with over 80% completion. Plus, prior to the game-winning drive, Pickett was struggling with a below 70.0 QB rating. But when it was crunch time, Kenny's QBR went up to 138.2 in that drive alone. Which current MVP candidate does Kenny remind you of? Can he be as good? Well, this player is Joe Burrow, and he has exploded onto the NFL scene. Both Kenny and Joe have very similar measurables. Both of the quarterbacks have a strong and accurate arm. The only major difference between the two is the number of offensive weapons that Burrow has in comparison to Pickett. Pickett is just getting adjusted to having George Pickens as his WR1, whereas Burrow has many weapons like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd. Not to mention that Burrow has a good defense. If this comparison is solid, then we should be seeing Pickett in the playoffs soon, maybe even in the Super Bowl. Kenny can be compared to many young quarterbacks in the NFL, both with his measurables and with some of his throwing ability. Some of these young guns include Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen. Some of these comparisons are more accurate than others. With some of these quarterbacks, they share the trait to come back and win games when the game is on the line. One of these quarterbacks, Justin Herbert, has a difficult time being able to lead his team back. If Kenny can stay in the same conversation as the rest of those quarterbacks, then the future is bright for both the Steelers and Pickett. How can Pickett make the next steps to becoming like Big Ben and become a Super Bowl champion? While he was on the Pat McAfee show, Pickett said, "I need to work on gaining a stronger control of the offense, both the play calling and the ownership of the offensive production." It is obvious that Kenny realizes that he still has a long way to catch up with someone like Big Ben's legacy. But weeks after the season was over, Kenny was back in training for the next season. Is there a chance that Big Ben could come in and help Pickett as sort of an advisor? The answer to that is still a mystery, but the possibilities of that happening are very strong. One of the main reasons that it could happen is because of the long relationship that Ben and Tomlin have had all these years. Kenny has the mental strength, leadership ability, physical measurables, and most importantly, he has a coach that knows how to develop a quarterback. Pickett's progression in his career will be dictated by the types of weapons the Steelers add, as well as the amount of talent they add to the offensive line. Well, Steelers fans, here is the answer to the big question. Can Kenny get the Steelers to the playoffs? The answer is positively yes. The Steelers would have made the playoffs this season if they didn't start Mitch for some games early on. The Steelers should have had more confidence in their first-round pick, especially if they are going to depend on him in the future. Mitch still has 1 year left on his contract with the Steelers. The Steelers could cut him, or they could trade him to a team like the Jets, who need a good starting quarterback. Going into next season, the Steelers need to cut their losses with Mitch and put more weapons around Kenny. The Steelers, under both Tomlin and Pickett's leadership, are sure to make the playoffs next season.